Excellent. Good evening all. Good evening all. Welcome to Weymouth Town Council's Finance and Governance Committee meeting, Wednesday, the 18th of December. Hello to everyone who may be watching online, either live or later. Got apologies for absence and substitutions is the first item here. Councillor Joanna Dickinson has kindly sent her apologies and is ably replaced by Councillor Dickens this evening. Good evening, sir, and welcome. We're happy to approve the apologies. Excellent. Yes. True. That looks unanimous. Wonderful. Item 3. Declarations of interest. There are none pre-notified. Does anyone have any that they're aware of before we start? Do feel free to wave a hand if you have a sudden crisis of conscience or similar later in the meeting. I don't anticipate one. Item 4 is for us to approve the minutes of the last formal meeting that we held on the 6th of November of this year as a true and accurate record. Everyone's had an opportunity to read them before the meeting, I believe. So I'm happy to propose those. Councillor Berman has seconded that. We vote on them. Votes for. Unanimous, Jeff. Wonderful. Thank you. We've not had any. Sorry, item 5 being councillor questions. I'm not aware of any having been submitted on the agenda, but I'm aware that Councillor Hope is here, live and in person. Would you like to ask a question, Ryan?
Chair, I do have a question, yes.
Fire away.
Thank you very much. My question is in relation to a resolution from the Services Committee that took place on Wednesday, the 10th of July, 2024. This resolution was in relation to the Littlemore Skate Park proposal, which was following a notice of motion that myself and Councillor Bell put before Council back in February 24 also. At this committee meeting, members voted unanimously in favour of the council supporting the principle of the full refurbishment following option 2, which will be concrete, with ongoing consultation with interested parties, and to request a budget line be added by the Finance and Governance Committee to start saving reserves. I have reviewed the draft budget that you will be looking at this evening, and I cannot see a line in this budget allocation that follows this recommendation by Environment and Services. So my question is, can I please be explained why that line is not in this budget?
Dick, are you able to field that one?
Having just been notified, Chair, I would need to go back and have a look and ascertain from others just a bit more information, and then I can bring that back and give Councillor Hope an answer. And obviously, if there's budget implications, then members are able, if the council, to make amendments if they wish.
Okay, that makes sense. I appreciate we don't normally have a to and fro around that, but are you content that that's the approach we take it at this stage?
Chair, no, I'm happy that I do appreciate this question was last minute and sent at 6:15 this evening. So I'm happy to have a written response from the Deputy Town Clerk. But I just ask members of this committee to please be mindful when voting on the draft budget this evening that you'll be sending to full council, that it doesn't currently include this, which was unanimously voted on by the Services Committee, has a huge amount of support in Littlemore, as well as the wider community of that end of Weymouth. Yep. So you may want to revise that budget within your proposals this evening to include that line.
Yeah, noted. No, thank you, Ryan. As there are no public questions that are pre-notified, item 6, and other than Councillor Hope, there are no members of the public, so I think we can move on to item 7, which relates to grant applications, which an item that the Deputy Town Clerk will be introduced now, please.
Thank you, Chair. Hopefully fairly simple, members. These were circulated around using the same principle around how planning applications are considered by the planning committee. There's no objections to these grants, so the recommendation is that they are agreed on.
I'm happy to propose that. Councillor O'Leary is nodding at me, which in this occasion, I believe, means he's seconding it. Fantastic. So, votes for, please. Excellent. Thank you all. Which brings us on to item 8, which is, as Councillor Hope alluded to just now, the draft budget and precept for the financial year 2025-26, which again the Deputy Town Clerk has kindly agreed to introduce it for us.
Thank you, Chair. I will keep this brief to start with because I appreciate there are members of the working group who have sat and considered this budget, but I'll just outline a few of the main principles which were considered by the budget working group during their meetings. The budget has been prepared in consultation with our service managers, and the principles which have underpinned that is the budgets have been set to keep service levels at the same levels as they are now without any reduction in services. And that needed an increase of £13 to be able to do that, Chair. We've had the tax base which has come through, which is higher than we would previously have expected due to the premiums on second homes, which has been introduced by Dorset Council for this year. The principle behind using that is then being to allow for an amount to be set aside to support the council's assets and priorities, because we are conscious that there are no sums set aside for areas such as playground refurbishments, toilet refurbishments, vehicle replacements. And also, I know that this council is ambitious in its priorities going forwards, which will need peculiar funding to be able to take those forwards as well. So that's how the budget has been prepared. It's incorporated the pay award, the increases in the national insurance and other contractual inflation which we've needed to build in. And it appears, Chair, that it's a good budget to take forward to support council's priorities.
Thank you. Not wishing to stifle any sort of debate, but as a starter for 10, if you like, the budget working group does comprise members of all groups on the council. The working group did agree the recommendation unanimously. I'd like to propose that we vote on it initially, whether or not to accept it. Councillor Furn's kindly agreed to second it, but before we do, is there anyone that would like to speak against it or elements of it?
You have to look at me.
So sorry, Councillor O'Leary, but I do have to look somewhere.
Well, I will speak, but not against it. The Conservative group will be voting for this budget. We think it's a balanced budget. Obviously, we don't want to vote to put council tax up, but we understand the realities of life, and I don't believe in just voting against things for the sake of it, and I don't have any reasons to. So therefore, the Conservative group will be supporting it as it is.
Okay, thank you very much. Sorry, and for clarity, colleagues, we're voting on moving it on to full council to vote on. We're not rubber stamping a budget here and now. We wouldn't do that. I wouldn't suggest that we went through this process for that. Sorry, Councillor Taylor.
Thank you. I've got a couple of comments I'd like to make on this. My rough calculation means that we're looking at putting up the precept by 9.9%, which in principle I don't have a problem with. But what I do have a problem with is our fees and charges going up by inflation. I know there are some that we've put up higher than inflation, but as a general rule, putting up fees and charges by inflation, which I don't know what date that is taken from, but you're still looking at about 3-4%.
Sure.
Whereas the precept is going up by 9-10%. So I would like the fees and charges looked at again. The other thing is actually alludes to what Councillor Hope said, is that we need to be very mindful of what is coming down the track. Dorset Council have had a real problem this year with its budget. They are going to be cutting services and wanting to devolve services to the parishes, towns and parishes.
Yeah.
And as a Dorset councillor, I would support that because I think a lot of the services actually fit a lot better within the towns and parishes. But I can't see any flexibility within this for that. We've had conversations, we've obviously got the skate park that we're talking about, that the local people want. We've talked about buses. Now, there are a lot of towns and parishes that support bus services. We have got a really poor bus service in Weymouth at the moment. Okay, if you want to go north, south, east, west, but if you want to go anywhere else, it's really struggling. So my personal view is that we may want to be looking at that. The other one that we may want to be looking at are the things like school crossing patrols, but I can't see any flexibility within this budget. What I would like to see, if we're going to put it up by this amount, I would like to see what the public are going to get for this additional money, other than just business as usual. And I think within business as usual, we need to start looking seriously at transformation, how we're actually going to transform the services we're doing to actually make them more efficient for our residents. So it's just a comment. So at the moment, I'm a bit reluctant. I'll vote for it to go forward to full council, but I would probably vote against it at full council as it stands.
Councillor Weller.
Thank you. I'm a little confused by Councillor Taylor actually, because I think there is flexibility in there, and I think that the point with this increase, which I fully accept that some people will think is too much, gives us that opportunity for money to go back in our reserves, which we haven't done for ages, which allows us that buffer when, as you rightly say, services are going to come down from Dorset Council, and I think that many of us feel that that's a good thing, but they are unlikely to come down with money. But I think our residents will be very pleased for us to start taking responsibility for the things that they think are important. And they are going to want us to have the funds to do that. This allows us to, we're looking, the whole point with the budget working group was looking to the future and giving us that robustness that we haven't been allowing for in the last 5 years. So I certainly will be voting for it. The Labour group will be supporting the budget. I have no doubt that there will be, as always is, between now and full council, there'll be a little bit of tweaking going on there and a little tiny bit, but in principle, this is a good budget, does give us flexibility, and most of all, it gives us much more robustness than we've had in the past.
Thank you. And Councillor Harris.
I've got a question first. Does this budget actually include the extra houses that came into Weymouth as a result of the boundary review? The ones that are in Livermore? So the baseline includes the income from those.
North of them.
Couldn't resist. Thank you for clarifying, Councillor O'Leary.
So that has been included.
So the changes to the boundary would have been reflected in the council tax base.
Excellent, good. I agree with Kate. I think that there is some flexibility in this. I think we've got to ensure that everybody recognises that there is a charge to this council as a result of government decisions in terms of the national insurance contributions and the pay rises for those on lowest pay. So I think we've got a justification for the increases that is already built into the system. We are putting extra money into the accounts into the reserves, and this should give us some extra flexibility. One of which, picking up Councillor Taylor's point, is we have a paper coming to committees at some stage in the near future about having our own community bus. So that is in the system, but of course it needs the money once it's there. So there will be a need for extra funding for some of the things we still want to do, but there is at least some flexibility in the system at the moment. Whether it's enough.
It's whether it's enough. That's
Yeah,
where I'm coming from.
Okay, thank you. All very good points, I think, and I think for me, one takeaway is perhaps we could be a little more explicit in the amount of, in explaining what we believe the sums going into reserve might be used for, and why that figure is there. I think that, because if it doesn't leave out, then it probably should do a bit better. So, thank you. And I think that would go a good way to helping councillor Taylor feel more comfortable about what's going on. I'm sure you're not alone, and what the elements councillor Hope referred to earlier as well. So thank you. As there isn't anyone else wishing to speak, I stand by my proposal that we vote on it. Alex, are you still happy to have seconded it? Yes. In which case, could I ask you for votes for us moving this on to?
Are we moving, is this a vote on 1 and 2? Recommend full council the proposed.
Let's try that. Yes.
But vote for both in one go, yeah.
So thank you, councillor Dickens, that's a very good point. Yes, please, that is for both. So, I said that.
Joanna.
I didn't think it was Joanna, right? So votes for, please, for both motions. Thank you. Yes, thank you. Unanimous, thank you all very much. Well debated. Which these aren't my team, which brings us on to item 9, the service plan review, business support, which again, the Deputy Town Clerk will be introducing.
I believe that,
Passing over immediately.
Manager chair will introduce.
Thank you.
Okay, to have us.
Hello, so business support plan's been updated in line with our new strategy. There's been a few minor tweaks to it and it's incorporated the new project team, which is under business support now as well. So just here today so you can review it and hopefully approve the
Thank you. Would anyone that'd like to speak to? Any questions for Lisa while she's here? Looks like you're going to get off quite lightly this evening. Be delighted to know.
Merry Christmas, guys, so.
Can I propose we accept the recommendation?
Thank you very much, councillor O'Leary. Let somebody else second. Stop it. Votes for them, please. Thank you all. Thank you. Thank you. Item 10 relates to the role of champions on the council, which again, for the penultimate time, the Deputy Town Clerk will be introducing.
I will, Chair. It's not too much for me. It's obviously something which has been brought before this committee. The members wish to discuss, to make recommendations of any changes to full council. Full council will ultimately need to ratify any recommendations from this committee. So I will leave it there.
Thank you very much. Councillor Furman, would you like to kick us off on this one?
Sure. Thank you, members. So this is, there's no surprises that come from me. I've spoken out against the role of champion. Well, not all roles of champions. The champion format, because I feel rather that councillors should be all of these things in their role. Very much understand that the Armed Forces Covenant champion and the right of way liaison role have to stay in. So this is very much not in the sphere of what we're talking about. We're talking about all the other ones. I will let councillor O'Leary talk if he wishes to on the subject as well, because we developed this conversation around kind of some lack of clarity and some other things. So yeah, councillor O'Leary.
Thank you very much. I raised this at the full council that was held at the Rembrandt. I spoke to Councillor Furman. We're both of a similar opinion. Armed Forces champion, a legal, that's a role we've signed up to. Councillor Dixon has a defined role. She knows what she's doing. She does a very good job, I believe. And I think, she does keep updated, and it's quite a niche position. A community champion, surely aren't we all community champions? we all go to coffee mornings, we all go to lunch clubs, we all do this, we all do that, you know, we're all in one way or another community champions and community representatives. I don't really see the point of it. Sports and activities champion, Tom Taylor's, you know, every Weymouth game I've ever been to, he's there with his scarf on, very, very good. But then Matt Bell, you know, Councillor Bell, sorry, that's one of my pet age calls, I mean, for the name of Councillor Bell, you know, he's very active and whatnot, you know, in various sporting charities. Councillor Furman in the past, supported things like the roller skating and the basketball. It was roller skating, wasn't it? Roller skating? What was it?
17.
Yeah, some
Basketball.
yeah, I know about basketball as well, and all things like that. So I think once again, it's all well and good, but what is the actual defined purpose of it? Youth champion, you know, we have a youth council, surely that they are the youth champions of this council, as opposed to someone like myself or Councillor Harris or somebody else going in there and trying to champion them. I mean, I don't like people speaking on my behalf, let alone, you know, some champion. So therefore, I just think time, you know, we tried giving reports, it just didn't work, and I still believe the two remaining ones. I know Councillor Young's position is different, but I think Councillor Dickinson, omitted it again then, he can't, not very well, should continue to give reports, but I would like to propose we scrap the community champion, sports and activities champion and youth champion positions, please.
Okay, that's very clear. Councillor Weller.
Just a couple of things. I increasingly don't feel that, the role is necessary. I do agree that we all do these things in our own patch, and if there's something that we need to report back, we have the opportunity to do so and to do any advocating that we need to without having specific people. I would say that Councillor Thomas Taylor has written reports for the next full council on both youth and sports activities, so you do have them.
Yes.
And his apologies for the past, but he has been very unwell for most of this year, so he has struggled. But I think that we've given it a try, it hasn't really helped. I have other thoughts on what we aren't doing that we should be doing, which I will leave for another time, but it doesn't involve councillor champions. I'm not altogether sure why this is a finance and governance, because it's not a finance and governance. If anything, it's HR.
I'd argue it's a governance, it's positions within the council.
Shall we
It's
just
not-
ask, sorry, to cut across to you, Councillor
Go find your
Elliott.
chair.
Ian, if you could,
Chair, I
add some
think
clarity.
members wished it was raised on this agenda. Obviously, there can't be any decisions made by this committee, but I think it's okay that this committee can make recommendations based on these discussions to full council. Full council, the only ones who can actually make the finals.
Thank you, that's helpful. Councillor Taylor.
I'd just like to speak as the community champion, and I'll be quite honest, I have never quite known what that is. The problem for me is there are so many community groups out there that it's really difficult to go and support one at the risk of upsetting others and not supporting the rest. I was also never quite sure where this role sat within what the mayor does, because surely it's the mayor as the representative of this council, along with us councillors, who are the community champions en masse. So I was never quite sure where my role sat within that. So if we want to scrap that, that is absolutely fine. I think, like Councillor Waller, I think there are some areas that we could have community champions. I'm not even sure on the armed forces covenant champion, to be quite honest, because a lot of that is also done by the mayor. The mayor attends an awful lot of the armed forces events. Therefore, I'm not quite sure what the armed forces champion adds to it, apart from, because we all go to them. We all go to the veterans and we all support all of them. So I don't quite know where that goes on this. I think there are rules for champions, but they have to sort of be within a service. I could see a role on Dorset Council as an example for a domestic abuse champion. Because that would be a case of overseeing all of the policies and the information that's going through and making sure that victims are being represented within the work that we do. And I think that sort of role could be quite useful, but I'm still not even convinced that's a role that is for Weymouth Town Council. Because the bottom line on that is that we don't have any responsibilities within domestic abuse within this council. So I'm quite happy to vote to get rid of all of them, apart from the rights of way role, which I think is a very different role and is almost taken out of the champion rules.
No, thank you for that. My understanding is that for whatever reason, we have to retain the Councillor O'Leary.
I believe we're signed up to the Armed Forces Covenant. We
That
have
sounds
to have a Armed Forces champion, if not, we have to withdraw from the covenant.
Okay,
And
right,
thank
thank
you,
you.
that's helpful.
Yeah.
But then we still need to define the role of it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Harris.
Yes, it's clear that it's not working. So that's fair enough, and that therefore we might want to have a pause in having any of these champions, other than the ones that have been set aside. But there are elements of activity that sometimes need somebody to push them and promote them and maybe help bring a paper to this council. Let's take the sports side of things. You know, there was a time when we had to fight Dorset Council because of what was happening at Redlands, and they were wanting to close Redlands down. Now, you know, we need somebody who would then actually join us together to help the two Dorset councillors, because obviously it was a Dorset Council decision that we were challenging, but it needed a Weymouth Town Council behind those two to actually help them through the system. So,
Dorset Council never wanted to close roads.
yes, they did.
Sorry, sorry, Chair.
And so, you know, and you know, I played a part as Weymouth Town Council to help, because I knew Active Dorset and how they actually worked, so could talk to those people in order to try and help that campaign. So you need somebody sometimes, but it's only, if you like, it's a sometimes occasion.
Yeah.
That we need somebody bringing us together to fight or promote something that is not necessarily our responsibility as a town, but it is our responsibility as Councillor O'Leary says, of supporting our communities by ensuring that certain things remain in place.
Yeah.
And so I think we need to think about this and maybe draw up a flexible way of recognising that sometimes we need somebody fighting a campaign on our behalf.
It sounds not unlike a working group of one or two, potentially one people, as it were, the grammar being deliberate there. Yeah, no, thank you very much. Councillor Bell.
I was just going to say, as the former sports and activities champion, it was very, very noticeable that I think there was an Echo article or something. Matt Bell's the sports champion. I had a flood of emails for about a week and then it was forgotten.
Yeah.
So it gave me enough to be getting on with a couple of months by the time stuff had gone through the system. But realistically, if these are going to be a fully functioning, fully fledged thing, we either got to decide we push it a lot more, or just go to what we're saying, that actually people know who their local councillor is anyway.
Yeah.
So I'm a bit torn because there is a function for it, but only if we're going to go full bore with it. But at the same time, I wouldn't want that to detract from local councillors being able to deal with their local football club or whatever anyway. So I am a bit torn on it. I get the logic of it. I get the logic of people going onto the website and seeing this person's got a focus on that. They might have half a chance of knowing what I'm requesting. I see that as a benefit, but at the moment, current structure, I don't think it's working. So maybe it's something we can do with Harris. Councillor Harris was, I don't know, Councillor Harris was alluding to, sort of maybe stepping back from it now and then viewing it down the line, and maybe a more sort of detailed list of what a person is in charge of or what they're leading on. That's got to be there, because it was a bit like floundering in the dark. I'm going to do this little bit, I'm going to do this little bit because I've been emailed about it. Might do that. Is that right for me to do that, or should I be referring to the councillor in that area? It's all a bit bit missing in terms of the detail, so maybe something to come back to, but at the moment, I'm minded to go with the, keep the rights away, obviously, and I personally would also keep the armed forces.
Thank you. Councillor Weller.
Thank you. Picking up on everyone. We do have to have somebody who is the figurehead for the Armed Forces Covenant. As Councillor Taylor said, the mayor not only attends Remembrance Service, but the following, on the 11th itself, the mayor is again at the cenotaph, the mayor is at the Aden veterans flag raising, they're at veterans, and all of those service things they are at. And the service people themselves tend to look to the mayor because they want the mayor there. I think it's great if the champion, whether that's Joanna or whether in the past it was Christine, they quite like that person there as well, but they absolutely want the mayor there. And it may be, and this is for future decision, it may be that the champion is the mayor, because that's a post that is, or even if nobody knows who the champion is, they'll then know that it's the mayor.
Yeah.
It's one of the mayor's responsibilities. So that will be changing all the time, but and it's not a decision for us to make now. And you'll see what I'm coming to in a minute when I say that perhaps, taking on what Councillor O'Leary said about it being governance, it's perhaps something that a few people should sit down and think of the governance of this. If we're going to rethink this, clearly footpaths is very important, and we need a single person, whoever that person is. But with the armed forces, I'd like us to consider it being the mayor, and that's on a rolling basis. And picking up on what Councillor Taylor said, I think, and bearing in mind that we aren't a management committee type council, we are committee based. There may be, and that means we don't have cabinet members or brief holders or anything, but increasingly, when you're talking to officers, it's sometimes quite handy for them to have an officer that they can, a member that they can speak to. And it may be within governance, we're starting to think about particular members who have an interest, a skill. We're always talking about doing the skills audit anyway, having a skill to sit down with an officer and talk through something in the preparation of a report to then come to the particular service committee. So that's just, I said I'd come back to it, but bearing in mind what everybody said, that's what I've been thinking. And I think perhaps if we can sit down in a group of governance and kick that about a little bit, we may come up with something that is much more supportive for our officers who are very stretched sometimes, much better use of those skills that members do or don't have, and ultimately be much more efficient.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Not to put words in your mouth, but that sounds like, one of the word from, and lead members rather than champions.
Yes.
For particular issues, which isn't just semantics. It's not.
Yes,
It's not the same thing with a
word
different
champions,
batch.
the word champions didn't sit well, but yeah, so perhaps we need in the new year to get a group
We are the champions was more
councillors to.
Friday 80s team, children's TV.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Councillor O'Leary.
Yes, thank you. In regards to the mayor and the armed forces champion, obviously, the mayor goes to all the flag raisings and the remembrance services. What I see Councillor Dickinson do, bearing in mind that I ring her husband every day and regularly in communication with both of them. Yeah, she knows. Is that she goes to things like the Aden Veterans Association, AGM. She goes to the British Legion AGM. She goes into the Veterans Hub for, a get together, etc. She covers the things the mayor doesn't, as it were. The mayor doesn't necessarily go to all those things.
Well, they should.
Well, they don't. And she even gets invited to things out in, where did you go last time? Wool. Yeah, Pete gets dragged along with her sometimes. So I mean, in fairness to her, she goes to a lot of things the mayor perhaps doesn't. Where does it sit well be about the sports champion and the community champion, etc. is, and it was alluded to earlier, we are all individual ward members. We all are like a sheriff, as it were, have our jurisdiction, you know. I don't like, you might be surprised, but I don't like people coming in, interfering in my ward or coming in and sticking their nose in. So, you know, and I'm sure other people don't. So in fairness, I think we are all individual ward members. And first, and it's our job to look after those areas. So when there are community issues,
Yeah.
I don't see I don't see the point in having a community champion, because that's what we are at the end of the day. Or a sports champion.
Understood. Thank you. Councillor Harris.
Can I put forward a proposal that we recommend, because you say it has to go to the
Yeah.
full
Yeah.
government, we recommend that the governance subgroup have have an opportunity of looking at this. Our recommendation is that we don't need it or as it is at the moment, we want it changed. And for the governance group to come up with some suggestions for full.
You can, but hold that thought just a moment, because councillor Hope has been waiting at me for a while, and then I will come to councillor Dickinson in just a moment.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, for allowing me to speak. I can't believe you've been talking about chairperson or champion roles longer than you talk about the budget, so you know. That's just an observation.
We're so happy about
I don't think by changing the title, you're going to resolve anything. I think the issue is you probably need to look at a member briefing on what the roles are to define, to actually support members in the roles. I quite appreciated when I had some war work come up in relation to sports, I could reach Matt and work with Matt on it. It's areas of the council that doesn't have a defined role within its current committees, and it's areas that the council wants to continue to support. I think just scrapping the roles because you don't want people interfering in your wards isn't right. And I think you actually need to look at shaping these roles more. And I think I would support Councillor Harris's recommendation to actually have governance look at this, come back with a further recommendation, and then some training and support for these members that are taking these roles on. A lot of them are new councillors, a lot of them need support and guidance, and just to scrap them because it's not working, I don't think it's right.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Dickinson, you've sat there patiently.
Yeah,
Are you okay?
I would just like to go to the vote, please.
Okay.
Are you seconding my proposal, Peter?
Yeah.
Hey?
Are you seconding my?
No,
There is a proposal on the table, as far as I'm aware.
You made a proposal
I made a proposal,
first,
and I believe,
and I'm happy to second it.
Yeah.
But, and then councillor Harris then made a proposal after that.
yeah, it doesn't correct.
Yes.
So are you suggesting that we vote on your initial?
Well, very much, yeah.
I don't have an opinion, Chair, it's just that, for the point.
There was the first one on the table,
The
so.
first one on the table.
So would you like to reiterate it, as it's been a little while?
Yeah, I
since
would
we-
like to propose that we scrap all the champions role, bar the two that we are mandated to have, which is the Armed Forces Covenant Champion and the Rights of Way Champion.
That we recommend to full council.
That we recommend that to full council.
Yeah, that's fair, and Alex said, okay, good.
I can then put an amendment to
Yes,
that.
you can.
And my amendment would be, and that we ask the governance group to look at the whole situation and come up with some proposals that might enable different roles or well-defined roles to be considered in the future.
Second.
Clear. Thank you.
So we accept what you've said, but we take it forward.
Would anyone like to speak to the amendment? Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Harris, for the amendment. I will be voting against that, as I feel that in the last 6 years of those roles, 6 years is enough time
Yeah.
to choose that. I think it's more important that we have a kind of wipe the slate clean and then allow for, as councillor Weller described, for something to come back a little bit more defined than if we're going to do it. It feels to me like we're going to get into a bit of a cycle with this.
Thank you, councillor Weller.
I think that's exactly what the amendment allows us to do, for the governance group to sit and work out exactly a way forward. So we're scrapping the roles as they stand now. That's one element.
Right.
The next element is for the governance group to look at how we move forward in roles that better help the council work efficiently.
Okay, I think so that I've understood this right, because I think we're talking about largely the same thing. The proposal is that the original proposal is that we vote to scrap the roles that we can scrap.
Yeah.
Sorry, that we voted to recommend to full council that
Yes.
we scrap the roles that we can scrap. The amendment would then come into place following full council agreeing of that proposal if it's agreed, and that's what the action would be afterwards. Are we all? No, that's what I'm trying to clarify, and that's why I think you're not a million miles apart. It's more it's sort of taking on that, yes, we agree that that's what will happen, and then following that,
Right.
Yeah,
that's how we would like
Yeah.
it to be resolved ongoing. So it's a two-parter, isn't it? So
Yeah,
maybe we do need to vote on the original.
Yeah.
We've got to vote on the amendment.
Yeah,
Vote Councillor News.
yeah, I just feel like we're gonna end up just going around the houses with this once
Yeah.
again. And if someone, we don't just scrap them, then someone comes in a couple of months' time with an actual proposal for a well-defined champion role, then they're more than capable of bringing this to the committee. But to have another group have a look at this again,
No, they're looking at a newly defined role.
they're
to
looking
see
at
if there
this
is a
again.
need.
Yeah.
We're
No,
looking,
no,
No.
you're voting to scrap it.
I vote to scrap it, yes, that's
Yeah,
fine, but
yeah.
then, but the whole,
Oh, really?
part of the parliamentary system in this country, which council is based on, is you can't bind your successors. So if you want to bring, champion roles back in the future,
We're not talking about champion roles, though, sorry.
if you want to bring back
No,
a
it's fine. I think.
Mr. Sport, or, you know, Mr. TSW.
I think, to my mind, the amendment does rather confuse and I know it's not intended to
Yes.
confuse the first vote, but it's trying to direct what we'll do after what we do next, but really all we're voting on is this is what this committee thinks. What do you think, full council? And then if full council agrees with that, then we can go with that amendment.
but equally, full council can just scrap the amendment that I've added. If that's the way full council
Well,
feels.
we've got to vote on the amendment yet, it isn't through
Yeah.
yet.
Move to the vote.
Put it to the vote.
To put the amendment,
Can I actually see what the amendment is and what the proposal is, because we haven't got that up on the screen, so I'm sort of feeling as if I've lost the plot to where we're going on this.
it's,
So
yes,
somebody can just put that up for us.
I'm going to do this in a slightly shorthand to.
it could, but I take councillor O'Leary's point, but it is,
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
I don't know. They are, I thought we could bring the two together, but clearly it doesn't sound like we can, so then we need to
So what they
vote
are
on item B.
reviewing, the governance committee review the roles, future roles. It's basically that, Chair. I think the recommendation instead of that by spelling is, there's two parts almost. It will remove the three named champion roles as be given, and then let the governance committee or ask full council to ask governance committee for review future roles. And they may come back with suggestions on that.
Can I suggest future options?
Yeah.
It may not be, it could be a role that's competing, it may not even be a role.
And I think the three champion roles need naming.
I've got that.
You've got them, you think,
Yeah, community, sports and activities and youth champion.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's in essence, I think, where possibly very
Okay, so
Do not need future options regarding.
No, just leave it completely open.
Yeah, for sporting council.
To support the work of the council. To support the work of the council.
so that amendment, the amendment is part B. That has been proposed and seconded. So shall we vote for that? What's for
On
please?
the amendment.
Shall we vote on the amendment? Thank you very much. Votes for. Votes against.
is 5, Chair.
And
You're abstaining.
I'm abstaining because I don't.
So that's part of this.
Okay.
So I think try to.
Yeah, which moves us on to the original proposal, which is that we remove the 3 named champion. We recommend to full council that we remove the 3 named champion roles. Been proposed, it's been seconded. Shall we vote on it? Votes for? Excellent. Thank you very much. Which leaves us, or moves us on to item 11. The income generation working group, which does not yet exist, but the deputy town clerk will introduce for us.
So we've had that working group before, Chair. It's been a good forum, discussion around income generation. Traditionally, it's been 4 members of this committee have been nominated to it, but there's an open invitation to all members to attend with any ideas which they may have.
Okay, thank you very much. Would anyone like to speak to that? Would anyone like to put themselves forward for that committee? Councillor Weller, thank you. Councillor Nicholson, Councillor Furman, Councillor Civil.
Your budget getting back together, isn't it?
And yeah, yes, that's a good point. And yeah, we're getting the band back together. Fortunately, the mayor has already left, so we can't ask him. But to that point, the committee, that the working group is open to all council members, not just those on this committee. So I would suggest that we add it as an agenda item at full council. To ask if anyone else, particularly from the group that's not currently represented from those names, would like to be on that. Although that does, of course, assume that the rest of this committee are happy for the 4 people that put themselves forward to do that. Councillor Dickinson.
I'd like to propose that the 4 people that have volunteered are put forward as the income generation working group from this committee.
Beautifully put, sir. Thank you. I'm happy to second that. Votes for?
Do we have to name them in the?
We will name.
I've got it, councillor
Yeah.
Weller, councillor Nicholson, councillor Furman, councillor Civil.
Thank you. Let's vote on it. Votes for? Unanimous. Wonderful. Thank you all very much. Which leads us on to item 12, which are the information items. Which are the actions from previous meetings and the forward plan. Are we all happy to note those items?
Noted.
I thought that was going to be a no for a moment there. Thank you. In which case, at 7:49 in the evening, I'll bring our meeting to a close. Thank